guys, welcome back to a video as we are continuing our series on making a tag album. We are going to be using this Best Summer Ever paper by Echo Park. It's really pretty paper. And a couple of videos from now we will get to decorating. For now we are still in the process of making our mini album. So we've already made the insides. So this is going to be our 8 pages where we put pockets. And now we need to continue on and make the actual cover. So I am using this Graphic 45 medium weight chipboard that I got from maymaymadeit.com. And I've cut down a 12 by 12 piece into 2 4x6 pieces, and then a 1.5 by 4. So all I've got left from a half a sheet of cardstock is this piece right here. This is my extra. So actually you could make 2 of these books with the supplies that you have. Really cool. All right, let's get started. Now to put this together, I went back to this Brutus Monroe paper. Let me see if I can find the cover. This is what we're using, this lunch bag cardstock from Brutus Monroe. It's really thick paper, and we're going to use this to also put the cover together. So what I have here is 2 sheets of that paper cut at 8 by 6 and an 8.5 by 6 because we need to put them together to make a longer sheet of paper. So on the 8.5 one, you see that I have got a score mark at 1/2 of an inch, and I'm going to cover that with sticky tape, and then we're going to put these 2 pieces together. And once that is done, we can go about putting together our cover. It should be a smooth and seamless process, correct? We'll see. So I'm using some 5mm and 8mm tape to cover that 1/2 of an inch up. So of course, if you have 1/2 an inch or whatever sizes of tape you have, you just want to cover that whole 1/2 an inch up. And again, the sizes and all the dimensions of everything I'm doing is going to be in the description box below. It'll also have links to everything from maymaymadeit.com so that you can follow along and make this book with me. Okay, so what I'm doing now is just make sure there's no overhanging tape, because that makes for a messy looking project, right? So this was the 8.5 sheet that I had a 1/2 inch score mark, and so I filled that 1/2 of an inch with the sticky tape. And so now I'm going to join it up as best I can, button it up to that score line to make one long sheet of cardstock. Okay, let's see if I've got it. Almost straight, but that's okay. It's just going to be used to cover up this chipboard, and we'll never know if it's off by a hair. Okay, now what we want to do is, if you have a T-ruler, this will make your life so much easier, and Maymay does carry these in her store. So if you see, the T-ruler is about an inch, or it is an inch in width. So I like to use that a lot and say, okay, here's my inch. So I would like there to be about an inch of cardstock on each side of this mini album as I'm wrapping it. So I've already done the measurements for you, but I'm just going to kind of make a mark to line this up. So I'm going 1 inch from the end here. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go 1 inch from the bottom, and this will just help me get everything lined up correctly. Let's go on over here just in case I need it. Okay, easy peasy. And I'm going to take my sheets of chipboard, and you can see now I've got a nice place to put that chipboard here in the corner where I had that 1 inch and 1 inch meet. Then you're going to have this piece, which is going to be your spine, and this. I'm just kind of laying out here just to make sure that I'm going to have enough cardstock where this makes sense. So if it's not exactly an inch all the way around, it's fine. You just need to have enough, right? You can always trim off. It's kind of hard to add to. So this looks to me to be good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this in sticky tape. So I have an even bigger size of sticky tape from May's store. Let's see if I can see what size this is. This is the 20, and it comes in handy when doing these larger pieces here. So I am just going to cover, I guess it would make sense to go this way. Hello. I'm going to cover all my pieces in tape, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so now I've got all of my chipboard taped up, and now it's time to put it all together. So I'm going to start with the left side, take all of my sticky tape backings off. You know, and I don't know about you, there's some people that love the construction process. They think that this is the most fun, and not so fond of the decorative process. I think my mother told me that pretty recently, that she really likes, and I'm just making sure that sticky tape is not got some hangover, it was a little bit long, that she really likes the construction part. And the, you know, the decoration part is fun, but it's a little more stressful for her, and I can kind of see why, because you know, you have really good instructions and step by step, right, when you're doing the construction piece. Got a little bit of glue missing here, so I'm just going to add a little more. And when you're doing the decorative part, you know, it's a little more, you've got to kind of make your own decisions, and you kind of second guess yourself sometimes. And I guess some people love that, and some people not so much. They would rather have some really good detailed example to go by. So we'll have a little bit of some of that. So I'm going to line this up with where that 1 inch by 1 inch meets here, and just try to get it kind of centered. It's not detrimental if it's off a little bit, but it will make life a little easier in the end. Okay. So I'm just going to make sure this is burnished really good in place. And next will come our spine piece. And you want to leave at least a width, sorry, I'm getting out of frame here, a width of chipboard, excuse me, you want to leave at least a little bit of space between the spine and the pages, at least the width of a chipboard. So I'm going to use this spare piece of chipboard we have left and kind of put that between where I'm going to line this up, just to make sure that I have enough space. And I'm going to be like a hair away from that. That makes sure in construction that you've got enough space to turn, and that you're not going to be hitting your two pieces of chipboard together, if that makes sense. You can kind of see there where you've got a little bit of room. And we're going to do the same thing as we're putting on the right side here. And if my math is right, we'll have about 1 inch all the way around all of these pieces in order to be able to wrap around it. I guess it's hard to talk and take up tape at the same time. Who knew? So you have to forgive me. I'm a little rusty. Take all this up. And don't get yourself a paper cut, but I like to make sure there's no overhang. Because if you have overhang and it gets into your project, number one, it looks messy. And number two, it'll attract dust, right? Eventually you'll have dust that stick there, your project, and you want this to last a long time. So I'm just doing the same thing here, trying to line this up on the line at the bottom, give myself a little bit of room, at least the width of this chipboard. Okay. Make sure this is pretty well lined up. And it is. It might be a hair off, but no one will ever know, except us. Okay, so now all that's left to do is to do the wrapping around. And like I say, I like to have about 1 inch Not too much more of that because it gets in your way. So I've got about 1.25 inches here on this side. So I think I will take a little bit of that off. Line this up. It's not necessary. I have to do it, but I do think it will help me as I'm trying to wrap my project, not to have too much bulk. Okay. Done deal here. Now there's lots of ways you can wrap this around. There's lots of different tools out there on the market, but basically what you want is you want to have about 1/8 of an inch right here on your project to make sure that you've got a clean cut. And I tell you, one of the things that I absolutely love to use is this from Colorway Arts, and it's made to put right on the edge of your project, and you can either make a mark here and trim it away, or the way I like to use it is put that here and use a rotary trimmer. Just start in the center and just kind of finish that angle, and usually leaves me exactly the right amount. Now chipboards widths vary, of course, from project to project, depending on if you're using medium weight, heavy weight, extra heavy, and this is made to hit somewhere in the middle. So depending on what you're using, your mileage may vary, like they like to say, but to me, this is the easiest way. Now, if you did not have this tool, did not want to invest the $12 or so in it, the other way you could do this is to make sure that you're about, like I said, 1/8 of an inch away here. You want to cut it at an angle. And so I'm just going to use my ruler here and make an angle and trim that away. And then we'll see how good we get. All right, so now in order to wrap this, what you want to do is cover this area in tape. So depending on what sizes you want. Now you could cover this in tape before you did all that trimming. Some people say that, you know, that wastes a lot of tape because you're cutting away. It just depends on what you like to do. Sometimes I do it that way just because I don't like to do all this cutting at angles of my tape. But either way. So I like to get coverage here all the way to the edge. So I butt it up against my project and I put one piece here on the edge of the paper I have left, and I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I will clean up my tape after that. But you do want to have some really good coverage. That's going to help your project come together and look more professional. Okay, now I've got full tape coverage around the edge and up to the book. And I'm going to make sure I give all that a good burnish, because the tape's only going to hold as well as it sticks, right? If it doesn't have a good sticking point to it, it's not going to hold very well. So believe me, I have learned that the hard way. You can cover it in tape if you don't make sure it's sticking flush on the project. Doesn't help. So, okie doke. Now, all that's left to do is wrap our book. So what I like to do is put it directly on my table and start stretching those fibers down. Bring that up to that chipboard. Okay. And I know people do this differently. I always like to do the long edges first and then go do the short ones. Maybe I guess it's a little easier to wrangle for me. Okay. And I try to do this, you know, in a couple of stages, hoping that we can get this where it doesn't crack, but I've used all kind of cardstock and done it all different ways, and sometimes you still have it crack. I think it's just the nature of the beast, right? So I'm just going to start taking my tape off and getting this wrap going here. Okay, I've got all of my tape removed, and so now all there is to do left is to pull the top down, make that pretty snug, and just work from one end to the other. Okay, using the bone folder. See, I've got this wrinkle here. I think I can just push that, there we go, right out, since I haven't stuck it down too far. Okay. Work this a little bit. As I'm doing that, it's working the bottom. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the bottom up here, pull, 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 pull down. Okay, oh, I got a little tape overhang, but that will be covered by pattern paper, so that's okay. So, make sure we've got a good stick. And doing all this burnishing really does make a difference, and you can tell a difference if you do one side versus another. You want to break those fibers down enough to flatten them, but not enough to start seeing them wear and tear or give you those little specks like they're starting to shred. Okay, so now the fun part, and this really comes in handy, this pointy tip on the Teflon bone folder. You have to wrap this kind of like a present around, and what I like to do is on the tip here, right next to the chipboard, I like to push, push, push that tiny piece down here where this overlaps. I like to kind of make that flat up to the chipboard piece. Okay, there we go. And then pull this part over. So I'm going to stretch this out, do a little bit at a time. Pull, pull, pull this over. And you should see, hopefully, some corners that do not have any exposed chipboard. So I like to use this and kind of get my corners to be nice and straight. Pretty good. Turn this around. Do the same thing. I'm going to flatten this out. Push that down right up to the chipboard. And start working this paper up and over. Okay. Yep. Pretty good. Pretty good. Got a little bit here of hangover, which if you don't like that, you can trim that away, but looks pretty good. So I'm going to start slowly, slowly working this binding where the spine is, and as I'm letting that stretch a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and flatten out this side of the cover. There we go. Same thing on this side. Start working this binding and flatten this out. You can tell it makes a pretty good difference here. And working my corners. Yay! We have got the beginning of our chipboard album. You can see I'm starting to get some cracking here, but most of that will be covered up by pattern paper. Happens to the best of us. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm not going to stress about it. I'm actually going to ink it and put some paper over it in a few minutes. And we'll go ahead and we can put some pretty paper here and put our pages inside. So I'll be right, we'll cut some paper and I'll be right back. Okay guys, let's get started back on our album. I've got some pages cut. And also, if you're like me and you'd like to ink the edges of your album or your pages, now is the time to do that. I'm using this Distress Oxide in Ground Espresso and an ink blending tool. And I'm going over all my edges of my pages and inside my chipboards. You can kind of see where I've gone over the edges here, but on this side I haven't done it yet. So if you want to see the difference, if you think that makes a difference to you or not, it does to me. I think it makes a huge difference. Let me get my camera, here we go, and make sure it's focusing well. So I'm just going to kind of finish this up and go through these little notches on this side. So I hope you guys are enjoying this. This is kind of a test run to see if we would like to continue doing these types of things. I know May cannot make but so many different examples of books and projects. She's only one person, right? So I'd like to see if we can help her out by showcasing some of the paper and products that she has in store. And I have really enjoyed doing this. And you guys, it's almost time for Craft Acropolis coming up in August. And I'll have that information down below too if you'd like some information about that on how you can come and craft with us. Take classes or just sit and have your own table space and just craft on whatever it is you like to do. It doesn't have to be scrapbooking. Okay, we'll kind of put that to the side. Now you can see I have written on my book, or it says ribbon on both sides, because I am the world's worst to get to going and forget to put my closure on my albums. I hope I'm not the only one that does that. So I've gotten, if I'm going to put a magnet or ribbon or something down, I try to remember to pencil it in so that I don't have to try and go back and scrape that up. Believe me, it's happened one too many times to me. So before we put the inside paper on, we're going to make sure we put our ribbon. But we are going to flip this over and start working on the outside here. So I have cut some paper down out of that beautiful Echo Park paper. Here again, this is what I'm looking at. Best Summer Ever. It's their summer paper from this year, 2019. So what I did is I cut two pieces down that was 5 3/4 by 3 3/4. And then to cover my spine to be my wrap, I did 3 1/2 by 3 3/4. And this is kind of what it's going to look like here. I'm going to wrap it, and then I will put something over the edge to kind of tie that together. Okay, so let's start gluing down. First, I'm going to start with the back, and I already have it taped up. So, just going to take the backers off. Make sure I don't have any tape overhang. Does anyone else notice that issue too about tape overhang? You want end-to-end coverage, but if you leave that hanging out, it tends to cause issues down the road. So I'm trying to make that a habit of checking. But after we get through with this couple of steps, I think we can move on to art glitter glue. But you know, the front cover is going to take a lot of handling. So I think it is important that we still continue to use sticky tape. So on this piece of paper, I've already inked the edges, and now I'm just going to line up near this edge, try to get the same border all the way around and not worry so much about this edge, because we're going to have this wrap for the spine. See, look, I have a little bitty piece there, but it's going to be covered up by the spine piece. And I'm going to do the same thing on the front. Take all this glorious tape off. I hope they are able to find another good supplier for sticky tape, because I am really going to be bummed if they're not able to. I know they were having an issue at May Made It, getting enough from their supplier. Maybe they will figure that out soon, because it is some really good stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to try to eyeball this, try to give me about that 1/8 of an inch all the way around on these 3 sides. Okay. Now, this can be the tricky part, doing the spine piece. So, let's see how well I did with my trimming, first of all. Pretty good. It may be off a hair, but it's very difficult to get it exactly right, even with the best trimmers, correct? I think everybody has that issue too. Using the paper trimmers, you think it should be absolutely exact, but I don't know if it's the paper that's off or the trimmers, or if we're just unable to cut straight. Some days it is a struggle. Okay. Little piece of tape there. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball this to make sure it's kind of even, going left to right. Once I get that, then I'm going to place it down on the back and go ahead and push down. Now, I'm going to, as I'm closing the book, wrap this kind of around to give myself enough space. I really don't want it to put it together where it's totally flat. You want to give yourself a little bit of room. So as you're wrapping it around, don't have it totally flat. Okay, and now as I'm coming toward the front, I am off a hair on my paper placement, but that's okay because I'm going to have a sticker that covers it up. But what I'm going to do is make sure it's not going to be apparent here that it doesn't match up. And the only way to do that is to trim it here. And then that sticker will do the rest. Okay. Now, here we go. See right here, it doesn't match up, but that's okay. I'm going to put a sticker there. And just kind of pull that off. And I'm going to hide my issue. So if you ever have issues like that, don't be upset about it or afraid to talk about it or be afraid to show people, because we need to know, right, if we have issues, how we go about solving them, because we're all going to have that, because none of this stuff is perfect. So I'm going to go back over my edge here. No, I didn't add any more ink because I don't want it real dark, but I don't want this to stick out either. There we go. So let's look at the stickers. Usually in a sticker pack, you've got a really long one at the bottom or something like that that you can use as a stripe, and looks like that's the only one on here, but I think it'll do the trick. Let's see. Yeah, I think that'll be cool. Now, because I am a weirdo, I'm going to add ink to the edges so that it matches everything else. Maybe I'm not the only one who does this, but I just can't stand myself. If I start one way, I absolutely have to finish it. So, let's see, I'm gonna have to do something to make that where it's not apparent, but anyway, we'll come back to that. Push this up to the top here, and I'll be able to hide my issues. Okay, and trim my sticker. Alright, so then I need to get that straight. Put some ink on the edge. It's coming right along. Okay, so let's start working on the inside. We'll come back before we're done and add some more to this front to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit. Okay, so let's go to the inside. Before we do anything, I want to make sure I put my ribbon down. So I have took a length of ribbon that is about 40 inches long and cut it in half to make it a little over 20 inches. It's right at 20 inches. And I want the yellow to show when you close the outside, so the white's going to show on the inside, okay? And I'm going to use some sticky tape. I'm going to put my ribbon more toward the top. I'm not going to put it in the middle. Well, maybe so. I changed my mind. On my other one, I did not. I had it put more toward the top, so it didn't line up with the others. But I think I will go ahead and do this and put it, just going to kind of eyeball the center. So this is going to be covered up with some cardstock. In just a few seconds when we're done with this. So I'm just going to go ahead and burnish, burnish, burnish. Okay, and do the same thing here with the white showing up. Tear off a piece of this. Just kind of eyeball it. On the end. Burnish that down good, but it's also going to have that cardstock on the top of it to help hold it down. But I'm just going to check here to make sure I'm not too terribly off on my spacing. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay. And I am going to take this paper off. I made the mistake one time in a project I was doing, leaving some paper on. I don't think it hurt anything, except that when I turn the pages, sometimes you could hear it crinkle. That's aggravating to go back and look through. So using that same cardstock, that lunch bag, I cut two pieces at 3 3/4 by 6 3/4. And what's going to happen here is this going to go straight up. While I'm remembering, I'm just going to go ahead and erase where it says ribbon. Okay. This is going to be covered up pattern paper. So I'm just going to try and, yeah. I think now we can switch over to art glitter glue, which this makes things much, much, much quicker to do it this way. So I try to make sure I always go around the edge. We want end-to-end coverage. I'm putting stuff together. And then I do a little bit in the center. Okay. And the focus here on this is making sure I get this as centered as I can, leaving about the same amount of space on these three edges or ends here. And it is going to come into my spine because we want to cover that up. So you can't be too slow when working with art glitter glue, because one of the good properties is that it dries super fast. That could also be a downer if you don't realize that, or if you're trying to work on something you don't want it to dry fast. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, and it's going to overlap slightly. Or I could butt it up just like that. Yeah. I think I'll just butt it up. That seems to work good. Maybe I planned it that way and forgot. That wouldn't be the first time. I've been working on this plan for a few months. You know how it goes. Another project comes along, and you start working on that one, and then you come back to another one. So I'm going to pull this down a little bit. Okay, I think I'm pretty straight. Okay. Okay, burnish really good. I'm so excited that I didn't forget my ribbon. I have made 2 or 3 mini albums recently, and forgotten that. I had to go back and try to either remedy or just leave it off and do something different or not use the closure. I was even watching a fellow YouTuber making an album along with her, and she did the same thing. And she was having to try and figure out how she was going to fix that. So all of us, if we didn't pre-watch her videos, was having the same problem. Okay, so I'm going to use my bone folder and gently put creases back in here. As you can see, some of my paper's coming up in the center. So I will go back and add some more glue there. This is the tedious part, right, is the construction. But like I say, some people enjoy the construction better than the decorating because I guess it's definite. You just follow instruction and go. All right, so maybe I should have used tape one last time. Give this a few seconds to dry. One thing about art glitter glue, it will hold. You just got to give it a little bit of time. But if you put stress on it and it's not ready for it, anything will let go, right? Okay, one more time. Stretch this out. So I kind of work this in the center, making sure I don't put a hole in it. I have done that too. I had to try to figure out what I was going to do. I'm just going to work it. I think we're pretty good now. I think we can add our pages. Okay, now we are ready to get our pages installed in our album. So what I have done is I went ahead and taped up on the spine of the pages that we have put together. I used that 10mm, and I've got a little space left here. So what I'm going to do is take the paper off, the backing, and then I'm going to, on that little space that's left, put a tiny strip of, I think this is the 5mm. I just want to make sure that I have got end-to-end coverage because this little strip's the only thing holding on all these pages to our spine. So we want to be sure we have got really good coverage here. So here we go. All right, now there shouldn't be a top and bottom unless you're worried about these seams here and want them on the bottom. When I was putting mine together, some of my seams are at the top, some are at the bottom. I wasn't really paying attention. So just a note there if you want to pay attention or not to that. So what I'm going to do now is to try and center this as best I can in on top of this spine. Make sure I don't have any overhang on my tape. And I shouldn't have any problems lining it up because it should be the same size. You just want to make sure you get it in the middle. As best you can. This is a little bit bigger here. Okay, I think that's good. Let me make sure. I think I went more toward the bottom than I did the top. Let's make sure it's going to close really well. Okay, and then I'm going to burnish. Burnish this down anywhere that I can get to. Make sure that's pushed down in the center. Oh, look at there. We basically have an album, and it's super cute. So the pages are thick. this thick cardstock, so it is going to pop up until those fibers relax in the paper. So what I think I'm going to do is just kind of let it sit with something on top of it in the closed position overnight and kind of let this relax out. But we have done a really good job so far. So the next step when we come back will be we'll make some tags and some inserts. We'll put pockets on the inside of our album and do a lot more decorating. But thanks for hanging in there so far. I hope you're enjoying this process. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Leave me a comment if you would like. And like this video. I guess I will see you soon. Bye, guys.